Hey guys, welcome back to more Reddit stories. In this malicious compliance / pro-revenge story, I paid off my parents' $480,000 mortgage, and their thank you gift was a lawsuit demanding half of my 8-figure company for my sister based on a contract I never signed. They thought I would quietly settle and pay them millions, but instead I hired a forensic expert and got the ultimate revenge. And the first one was actually posted on r/am I the a-hole, but it's also kind of a revenge / malicious compliance story, and it is titled, I paid off a $480,000 mortgage for my entitled narcissistic parents, but now they demand I give my company to my sister. So I'm a 32-year-old male and I own a logistics and software company. I built this thing from the ground up, starting in my college dorm room with a laptop that was missing the E-key and a server I built out of spare parts. I missed parties, I missed dating, and I missed sleep. I ate instant noodles for 3 years straight, so I could put every penny back into the infrastructure and the staff. It paid off though. The company is now evaluated in the 8 figures and we handle logistics for some major regional carriers. My family dynamic has always been lopsided, to put it mildly. I have an older sister, let's call her Evelyn, and Evelyn is the golden child. She can do no wrong. If she failed the test, it was the teacher's fault for making the questions too hard. If she got fired, the boss was jealous of her style. If Evelyn crashed her car, the road was slippery or the other driver came out of nowhere. Me though? If I got an A-, I was not applying myself. If I won a state-level coding award, I probably just got lucky or the competition was weak. You get the picture already. Despite this though, I always crave their approval somehow. It's a sickness, honestly. I thought if I just became successful enough, if I just made enough money, they would finally look at me the way they looked at Evelyn. 2 years ago, my parents were complaining about their finances during every single phone call. Apparently, they had refinanced their house multiple times over the last decade to fund Evelyn's various business ventures, which included a dog walking app that didn't have an app, a dropshipping business that sold defective products, and a jewelry line that turned everyone's skin green. Essentially, they were drowning in debt and facing foreclosure. The mortgage balance was roughly $480,000. It was a massive chunk of change, but I could afford it, without hurting my finances too badly. And damn guys, this dude is really doing well. Anyway, I wanted to do something nice. I wanted to save the family home where I grew up, and I wanted them to finally say, wow, thank you son, we are proud of you. So I wired the funds, I paid off the entire mortgage in one fell swoop directly to the bank. There were tears and my mom hugged me harder than she ever had. My dad actually shook my hand, looked me in the eye, and patted my back. For about 3 weeks, it felt like I finally had a family. I was on cloud 9, and then came the holiday dinner. I was invited over for a celebration of financial freedom. I walked in and the mood was weirdly formal. Evelyn was there smiling like the cat who caught the canary, wearing a new designer dress that I'm sure my parents paid for. We sat down to eat, and halfway through the pot roast, my dad cleared his throat and pulled out a piece of paper from under his placemat. It was not typed. It was handwritten on what looked like a sheet from a standard yellow legal pad. He slid it across the table to me. It was titled Family Support Agreement. The text was scribbled in blue ink. It said that in exchange for the emotional support, housing and guidance provided by my parents and my sister during my formative years, I, the undersigned, agreed to transfer 50% of the equity in my company to Evelyn. At the bottom, there was a signature. And yeah, it looked like my signature. I stared at it, I looked at them, and I thought it was a joke. I actually laughed though and asked if this was a gag gift or some kind of prank, but my dad didn't smile. He said, "We found this in a file cabinet. You signed it 3 years ago at Christmas. You were very drunk and emotional, and you said you wanted to make sure Evelyn was taken care of because she supported your dreams." I genuinely froze. There were 2 massive problems with this story. First, I've never agreed to give anyone equity in my company. My investors would skin me alive, and my operating agreement explicitly forbids transferring shares without board approval. And second, most importantly, I literally cannot drink. I have a metabolic condition called ALDH2 deficiency, sometimes called Asian flush, though it happens to various ethnicities. It basically means that my body doesn't produce the enzyme needed to break down acetaldehyde. If I drink even a few sips of alcohol, I don't get drunk or happy. Instead, I turn beet red and my heart rate spikes to 140, and I get a splitting migraine and I vomit immediately. It essentially feels like having the flu instantly. I have not touched a drop of alcohol since my 21st birthday, when I ended up in the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. The idea that I was drunk at Christmas 3 years ago is physically impossible. I was sipping ginger ale that night, I remember it clearly. I told them this and I said, "I didn't sign this. I cannot drink. This is a forgery." Evelyn started crying immediately. It was clearly a performance worthy of an Oscar. She wailed about how I was trying to back out of my promise, how I was greedy, and how I didn't care about family. My mom chimed in saying she remembered me signing it and that I was drinking that special eggnog, which I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole because the smell alone makes me nauseous. They told me that I had two choices. I could honor the contract and transfer the shares quietly, or they would take me to court and expose me for the liar that I am. They said the house payment was a good start, but it didn't make up for years of me ignoring the family to build my business while Evelyn was there for them. I stood up, I was shaking with rage. I told them to never contact me again. I told them the house was a gift, but this was extortion. I snapped a photo of the document with my phone before my dad snatched it back, and then I walked out. Since then, they have blasted me on social media, my aunts and uncles are messaging me, calling me a thief, and they are saying that I took advantage of my parents' generosity and now I'm leaving my sister destitute. To be honest, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone here. I paid nearly $500,000 to save their house, and now they want half my company based on a napkin contract I never signed. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to honor this contract, cutting off my parents after paying their mortgage and threatening legal action if they don't stop harassing me? And yeah guys, let me know what you think about this one in the comments. I'm not sure anyone in their right mind can call OP an a-hole here. If anything, I would say he is way too nice because these parents clearly don't deserve the treatment he gives them. They are clearly exploiting him if you ask me. Either way, now we will read some comments and then the update to the story, so don't turn off the video just yet. Comment number 1, NTA, lawyer now. This is not just family drama, this is attempted fraud and extortion. If the company is worth 8 figures, 50% is a life-changing amount of money and they will not just stop. The fact that they forged your signature is criminal. You need to lock down your credit and your business assets immediately. Comment number 2, NTA, but strictly from a business perspective, you need to be aggressive. Even a fake contract can cause issues for a company. If investors get wind of an ownership dispute, it creates cloud on title for your shares. You need to get ahead of this. Also, $480,000? You're a saint. I would have foreclosed on them myself. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here for letting it get this far. You knew they were leeches, you paid the mortgage anyway, and you taught them that you are an ATM. Now you are surprised that they are trying to make a bigger withdrawal? You're the a-hole to yourself, man. And I gotta say, good point. I haven't heard that before, but OP is definitely the a-hole to himself because he still keeps in contact with these entitled parents and the entitled sister. His life would certainly be much better if he would not surround himself with these people anymore. Either way, update to the story. And by the way, if you've watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post a comment telling me where you are watching from today if you want to help me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks a lot. So it has been almost 2 years since I posted the story. Buckle up because this was a long, slow burn, but the payout was worth the wait. I took the advice from the comments I got. I contacted a high-end firm in the city that specializes in commercial litigation and fraud, and when I showed my lawyer, Robert, the photo of the contract I'd snapped before storming out, he did not laugh. He got very quiet and he stared at it for a long time and said, "They are actually going to try to enforce this? With a blue ink ballpoint on legal paper?" Sure enough, 3 weeks later, I was served with a lawsuit. My parents and sister had found a lawyer who was either desperate or unethical enough to take the case on contingency. They were suing me for breach of contract and demanding specific performance, meaning the transfer of the stock plus damages for so-called emotional distress and loss of future income. They claimed in the filing that the contract was signed on December 25th 4 years ago, and they claimed I was intoxicated but lucid enough to understand the nature of the agreement. Robert laid out the strategy. We were not just going to defend, we were going to destroy their case so thoroughly that they would regret ever learning the word lawsuit. We started with the discovery phase, and this is the boring part of TV shows, but it's where cases are won or lost. We requested the original version of the contract and they fought us for months, sending over photocopies, claiming the original was in a safe place, and Robert filed a motion to compel and the judge finally ordered them to produce the original for inspection. Once we had the original document, we hired a forensic document examiner. This was not just some guy who looks at handwriting, this was a guy who testifies in federal criminal cases. He used microscopes, infrared light, and indentation analysis. His report was devastating for them. First, he analyzed the paper itself. It looked like a standard yellow legal pad, the kind you buy at any office supply store. However, the expert noticed something about the ruling lines. He contacted the manufacturer of that specific brand, identified by the cardboard backing, which they foolishly left attached. The manufacturer had slightly altered the opacity of the blue ruling lines and the width of the left margin in early 2021 to save on ink costs and standardization. The expert obtained an official affidavit from the paper company confirming that the specific line spacing design on that sheet of paper was not in production in 2019 and the date they claimed I signed it. The paper literally didn't exist when I allegedly signed it. Second, he analyzed the signature. It was not a tracing. It was a simulation, someone trying to draw my signature freehand. He found tremors in the ink line where the hand hesitated, which doesn't happen when you sign your name naturally, and he also found microscopic indentations on the paper from where someone had practiced on a sheet on top of the contract before signing the real one. Third, and this was the kicker, he compared the handwriting in the body of the contract to samples of my sister's writing we obtained through Discovery, old birthday cards, checks she had written to my parents and so on, and it was a match. Not a maybe match, a high probability of common authorship match. The loops on the Y's and the ways the T's were crossed were identical, we had them dead to rights. But Robert said, wait, let's let them hang themselves, and we proceeded to depositions. A deposition is where you sit in a conference room with a court reporter and answer questions under oath. If you lie, it is perjury, so we deposed Evelyn first. She sat there with her lawyer looking smug. Robert asked her gently about the night the contract was signed. Walk me through the evening, Robert said. Evelyn spun a tale. She described the fire in the fireplace, she described the eggnog, and she detailed how I was crying about how much I loved her and how she was the reason for my success. She said I grabbed the legal pad and wrote the contract myself because I wanted to be generous. So you saw him write every word? Robert asked. Yeah, she said. I watched him write it. And he signed it in front of you? Yes. And this happened on Christmas Day 2019? Absolutely, I remember it perfectly. Then we deposed my parents and they corroborated everything, and my dad added a nice touch claiming he tried to talk me out of it because it was too generous. But I insisted. They were all in on the lie. They locked themselves into a story that was physically and scientifically impossible. We moved for a summary judgment, but the judge wanted to hear arguments, and we ended up in a hearing regarding the validity of the contract. My parents showed up to court looking like the victims. My mom was wearing a threadbare coat. She owns fur and she left it at home. My dad was using a cane I'd never seen him use before. They were playing the part of the poor elderly parents abused by their billionaire son. Their lawyer gave a speech about the sanctity of family promises, and then it was our turn. Robert stood up. He just started presenting the evidence. He put the forensic expert on the stand, and the expert projected the image of the paper's microscopic line analysis on a screen. He explained the ink opacity change, and he read the affidavit from the paper manufacturer, and the color drained from my dad's face. Then the expert showed the handwriting analysis and he overlaid Evelyn's handwriting with the contract text, and it was a perfect match. Then Robert played the video clips from the depositions where they all swore under oath that I wrote it in 2019. Finally, Robert submitted my medical records regarding my ALDH2 deficiency, proving that if I had consumed the amount of eggnog they claimed, I would have been in a hospital, not drafting contracts. Counsel, the judge said to my parents' lawyer, are you aware of the origin of this document? The lawyer looked like he wanted to vomit. He started stuttering, saying he was relying on his client's statements and had no knowledge of the forgery. He actually asked for a recess to consult with his clients, but the judge denied it. The judge then looked at my parents and Evelyn. You have come into my courtroom, filed a lawsuit based on a document that didn't exist on the date you claim it was signed, and lied under oath and depositions. This is a fraud on the court. She stated on the record that the court found the plaintiff's testimony to be demonstrably false and malicious, and she didn't just dismiss the case with prejudice, She instead issued a judicial sanction against them and directed the court clerk to forward the entire transcript and evidence file to the district attorney's fraud unit. She looked right at my parents and said, "You used this court as a weapon for your fraud. Now you will answer for it." Evelyn started screaming, not crying, screaming. She yelled, "It was his idea. Dad told me to rewrite it. He said OP has too much money and he owes us." She essentially threw my dad under the bus in open court. It was glorious. My dad started yelling at her to shut up. The bailiff had to intervene to separate them, but I was not done yet. I had countersued. See, when I paid off the mortgage, I didn't just hand them cash. I paid the bank directly, but in the countersuit we argued that the payment was made under the assumption of a continued familial relationship which they fraudulently exploited. More importantly, we sued for our legal fees. Because the contract was ruled a fraud and the lawsuit was malicious, the judge awarded me 100% of my legal costs, and my legal bills were astronomical. The expert witnesses, the hours, the depositions, it all came to over $140,000. My parents didn't have $140,000. They had a house with no mortgage though, and we filed a judgment lien against the house. Now for the criminal part, the district attorney actually took the case. Usually, family disputes don't result in criminal charges, but the amount of money involved, 50% of my company, made this a major financial crime. Plus, they had perjured themselves on the record. Evelyn cracked immediately in police custody. She confessed to everything. She admitted my dad came up with the plan because he was angry that I didn't buy him a new car when I paid off the house as well. They thought I would be too scared of a public court battle to fight them. They thought I would settle to keep it quiet because Evelyn was the one who actually forged the document. She took the hardest hit. She was charged with forgery in the first degree and attempted grand larceny. My parents were charged with conspiracy and perjury. My parents ended up taking a plea deal to avoid jail time due to their age. They got massive fines and 5 years of probation, but to pay the fines and my legal judgment, they had to sell the house. The house I had just paid off for them. They walked away with almost nothing after the fines, their own lawyer's fees, and paying me back. They are now living in a one-bedroom apartment in a less than desirable part of town. Evelyn was not so lucky because she had a prior record for check fraud, something I didn't know about until this investigation. Apparently my parents had covered it up years ago. The prosecutor played hardball. She was sentenced to 3 years in state prison. I was in the courtroom when she was sentenced. She looked at me and pleaded, "I'm your sister, do something." I just looked at her and said nothing. I didn't feel happy, I didn't feel sad, I just felt relief. The leech was finally detached. The fallout has been massive. The extended family that called me a thief, they have gone radio silent. One aunt tried to reach out to bridge the gap last week. I had my lawyer send her a cease and desist letter stating that any further contact would be considered harassment. I have now fully blocked every single relative. I changed my phone number. I moved to a new house with a security gate. The best part of the malicious compliance came from their own demands. They wanted the contract enforced. The contract stated that they were owed compensation for their so-called guidance, and well, the legal system guided them right into a cell and poverty. They wanted me to treat them like business partners. Fine, business partners who commit fraud get prosecuted. I treated them exactly like I would treat a stranger who tried to steal my company, and I realized something through all of this. I was paying for a fantasy. I was paying $480,000 for parents who loved me, but you cannot buy that. The moment I stopped paying, the love stopped. I'm focusing on my company and my own mental health now. I have a great therapist who's helping me unpack 30 years of narcissistic abuse, so to answer the original question, no, I'm not the a-hole in my opinion. I'm the guy who paid off their house and then took it back when they tried to stab me in the back. Justice got served. Comment number 1, you're the a-hole, and I'm saying this as someone who has literally never commented on this subreddit before. You literally bankrupted your own blood family and sent your sister to prison. Do you have any idea what's going to do to your parents in their old age? They had to sell the house you grew up in because of you. Yeah, they tried to forge a document, but so what? Family is family. You think some piece of paper matters more than the people who changed your diapers? Evelyn is your sister. She made a mistake, sure, but 3 years in state prison for a non-violent offense? You could have just settled out of court, given them a couple millions, and everyone would have been happy. But no, you had to be a cold-hearted corporate robot about everything, and let's talk about that $480,000 mortgage payment. You knew they were struggling and you just threw $500,000 at them without any conditions? What did you think was gonna happen? That they would suddenly start respecting you? That's not how narcissistic parents work, my guy. You played yourself. Also, the way you're bragging about sending a cease and desist to your aunt, you're literally isolating yourself from your entire family because you won a lawsuit. Is it really winning? You have no family now, you have money, but you're alone. That's not a victory, that's just being rich and miserable. Also, 3 years later and you're still in therapy? Get over it already. Not everyone has a perfect family. I cut off my dad after he called me a failure at Christmas, and you don't see me crying to therapists about it. Grow up. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. Not even close, actually. I would give you a platinum award if I wasn't currently eating rice and beans for the 3rd consecutive meal. Okay, I need to address something though. I keep seeing comments calling you cold or ruthless for not letting it go or being the bigger person. To those people, go screw yourself. This is not your standard family drama where someone said something mean at Thanksgiving. This is a coordinated criminal conspiracy to steal half of someone's company based on a forged document. The contract had the legal validity of a doodle on a napkin, but that didn't stop them from suing you, deposing you, and threatening to expose you publicly. They went for the jugular, they wanted to ruin you, and we're supposed to feel bad that they got hit back? The paper analysis detail, by the way, was crazy. I literally gasped out loud at work. The fact that the paper itself was proof of forgery because the ruling lines didn't exist in 2019, that's the kind of forensic evidence they show in law school textbooks. Your lawyer absolutely cooked them. The only part that makes me sad is that you had to go through this at all. No one should have to sue their own family, let alone gather forensic evidence that their sister forged a contract. You did not ask for any of this. You just wanted your parents to be proud of you and they tried to rob you blind instead. The best part of this whole saga is that they wanted the contract enforced and well, they got what they signed up for, just not in the way they expected. They wanted the business world to treat them like serious parties with legitimate claims, and the business world treated them like fraudsters committing crimes. They wanted you to honor family obligations, and well, the legal system honored those obligations by holding them accountable for their actions. You did not ruin your family, they ruined themselves the moment they decided to forge a document and then extort you. You just held them accountable for it. Also, moving to a gated house with a new number and full no contact, that's the way to do it. No loose ends, no second chances. You don't owe them anything, not a second chance, not a phone call, not even a middle finger. Just complete and total indifference. That's the ultimate win. Go touch some grass, enjoy your successful company, and find some people who actually deserve your love and loyalty. You more than earned it. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here. Your parents and Evelyn are obviously sociopathic criminals forging a contract on paper that didn't even exist yet. That's some low-tier Looney Tunes villainy. They deserve the 1-bedroom apartment and the probation. But OP, you suck for the I crave their approval routine. You spent $480,000 to buy their love, which effectively subsidized their ability to hire a lawyer to sue you. You funded your own attempted downfall, and while I get that they committed fraud, seeing you brag about the payout being worth the wait and watching your sister beg for help while you stare at her blankly is chilling. Your family is a toxic waste dump, and instead of just leaving, you decided to become the biggest toxic waste spill of them all. This whole story is just a bunch of wealthy or wannabe wealthy people being miserable to each other. And yeah, let me know guys what you think about this story in the comments and whether you think OP was the a-hole or not. The next one is an amazing petty revenge / malicious compliance story which is titled "My boss insisted we cut out the middleman to save 15%, so I let him handle the logistics of a 40-foot container." I work as a purchasing manager for a mid-sized home goods retailer. We have used the same domestic importer for our seasonal decor for 5 years already. They charge a markup, but they handle the customs, the quality check and the shipping. It is hassle-free, and my new director of operations is convinced that he is a business genius. He called a meeting last month and lectured me about how we are hemorrhaging money by using a local distributor. He told me to cancel our contract for the holiday shipment and go direct to the source. I warned him and I told him that dealing with freight forwarders, tariffs and port delays is a full-time job. He told me I was just being lazy, and he actually said just get me the contacts, I'll close the deal myself. So I did. I spent a few days on Alibaba compiling a list of legitimate Chinese manufacturing companies that produce glass ornaments. I then handed him a spreadsheet with 20 factory contacts, their MOQ, minimum order quantity requirements, and the time zone differences. I sat back and watched the show, and he realized that FOB price does not include shipping to our warehouse. He wired money to a supplier but forgot to hire a customs broker, so the shipment got flagged by CBP. The container sat at the port for 10 days because he didn't understand what an ISF filing was. The demurrage fees, fines for not moving the container alone, cost more than 15% he was trying to save. He came to my desk yesterday looking incredibly humbled and asked if I still had the phone number for our old importer. And the next one is a petty revenge story. And it is titled, "Won't give me $20 off? Fine, I will get $50 off instead." So for reference, I'm 15 and I run a small mowing company in my neighborhood. I've been saving up to buy a new mower to replace my current 16-plus-year-old one. I went into the only Home Depot in my city that had a $750 Honda mower in stock. I originally found an associate and tried to get the floor model, but since they had one in stock, I could not buy the floor model. Oh well, I pulled up a competitor's site, Northern Tools, and showed a different associate that I could get $20 off there with a coupon, and the other store was less than 5 minutes away. They talked to who I believe was the department manager, and they approved it, so then I make my way over to the registers and tell the associates what the others said, and she calls over her higher-up. Enter Karen, the haircut and all. Me, I was told by that associate that I could get $20 because a competitor has it at a better price. Karen, in a part mocking, part baby tone voice, "No, that's a coupon. It has to be the actual price of the item. They don't know what they are talking about. I'm the financial supervisor." By the way, they say on their website they accept the competitor's coupons. Me, okay then, I will just go put it back. So I do so and head back to the car. While leaving the store, she drops her head down, makes that puppy dog / poor you face and says, "I'm sorry, you could save money." I wanted to flip her off so bad. I decide, you know what, she's not a manager, let me go talk to customer service. So I go to the desk and this is how the conversation goes. Me, "Hey, I was trying to get $20 off a $750 mower. I was told it was okay by 2 associates, but then your supervisor over there said absolutely not." Customer service guy, "Okay, let me see this mower. I can give you $50 off." So he goes, looks at the mower, goes back to ring me up. We have a conversation about cars, and I walk out of the store, and Karen does not say a word. And yeah guys, thanks for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.